Cut.
Action. Woo! Welcome to the program, Ciara. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I think third time's a charm. If we lose some connection, I think we'll be all right, but let's just keep rolling. So if you don't mind, again, for the people, I know that you so beautifully explained what you do before this take, and if you don't mind, could you can you tell everybody a little bit about what you do? Tell everybody about your podcast, Run, Thrive, Survive, and then we'll talk about running this marathon.
Yeah, no, so I mean, hey, I get a second chance to kind of clean up my answer to what you just asked me. I'm Ciara, and it's my elevator speech. 30 seconds, ready, go. So I'm Ciara, and what I pretty much do, I do a multitude of things, and it all comes together for one purpose, and it's pretty much helping explain health and fitness and improving people's lives with the psychology of behavior. Now, I like to call myself an almost behavior analyst because I'm so close to being board certified in behavior, being a board certified behavior analyst, but I legally cannot say I'm a behavior analyst just yet. But it is a huge thing with me where a lot of people think of psychology as Freud, that, ego and talk about your feelings. I see it as more of a science where we can actually work with things and make mental hacks with our habits and our rituals. And I do that a lot with behavior change and fitness and health. And I think that's a huge thing that a lot of us are lacking. Like we were discussing earlier today, where you get on and, 3 days before you see me or we talk, you work out and then it kind of drops off. Well, it's not because, your childhood made you drop off the day after this. No, it's motivation, it's habits, it's rituals, it's behavior change. So I work with that. I'm a personal trainer, a health coach, nutrition coach, and also, board certified behavior analyst. It all comes together and we work really hard to improve your life, your health. And it's more important than ever during COVID. I mean, don't tell me your people that argue all day long that we need to do things for each other to stay healthy. I think the most important thing you can do for other people to stay healthy is to keep yourself healthy. And that's my biggest push right now.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and just curious on this, like, how did you kind of come to the conclusion of thinking of it more in, I don't know, the psychological terms, but taking a different take on this than either the two approaches, right? Like you have the Freud where it's like, well, if you sit down and you think about what you did as a child, then you could figure out why you can't do that sixth rep. And then you also have the side that is like, just push through. I know that your leg is broken, but just keep going. Like, how did you take this like different approach using psychology and behavior and start incorporating that into like personal training and stuff?
Yeah, so long story short, I wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to be that person, like, let's talk about your childhood. I got into it. It almost felt like it was like an out there reaching type of thing. Like there are approaches that I believe in, but when it came to all this psychology where we were learning, when they couldn't exactly explain things with science, I just couldn't get behind it. So it was kind of a personality decision in a way where I needed something that I knew and that I could relate to. And when we started, I was a huge fan of Criminal Minds. So if anybody's seen Criminal Minds, they are behavior analysts. That's literally what they do. I grew up watching that from second grade. It's the only show I watch. I'm not a huge Netflix person, but Criminal Minds, I got you. I named my cat after Agent Hotchner. And when I know, I really laugh when I say it. I'm like, it's a serious thing.
It's true.
When I got into it, I loved behavior analysis. Now, the only problem with it at the time was a lot of people use it for helping children with disabilities. They work in a lot of clinics that work directly with kids with autism. I love this. I think it's a wonderful idea. I do not have patience for kids. I'm just not good with kids. And maybe that's my age thing. Maybe it's just a maturity thing. I just didn't have patience. So I kind of strayed from it, but I was like, well, you can use behavior change in health and fitness. So at the time, I tried so hard to use behavior change in health and fitness and talk to my professors about it. And they're like, this just isn't a thing. This isn't a field that anybody goes into. I was like, but it's so important. I mean, I wanted to work with overweight people. Like I really wanted to work with people that their last straw is to lose weight, because behavior change, I've seen it in myself. It can really help you. And I said it before, people with eating disorders, it's behavior change. It's a mindset. It's rituals and habits that you've created for yourself that can really help you. It's not about digging deeper into your soul. I mean, understanding why you do what you do is important, but understanding why you do habits is even more important, and establishing better ones. To not think about things is way more important than sitting here and reflecting for the rest of your life and going to therapy for the rest of your life. I just don't think it's necessary. And I was always into health and fitness. So those two things combined, I guess it was just like my personality decision. I just wanted to help people. And I'm not saying you have to have some crazy problem to, to talk to me or anything. I'm saying, if you need help establishing a goal, there's ways to do it by just getting a routine and rituals behind it. But there's so many road steps and obstacles to get to those. And that's what I love to help and coach people through and really pick apart.
Yeah. No, that's cool. Well, and it seems it's interesting that you kind of talk to some of the professors and things like that, and they're like, well, this doesn't really exist. And it kind of reminds, it's weird because I'm getting a really similar theme across the board from a lot of people that I'm talking to for this podcast, especially people that are starting up their own businesses or, doing their own services. I think a lot of people around our age are trying to do things, the same things that have been done, but get there in a slightly different way, because it's a melding of like what people actually go through, in addition to bringing in the tried and true science that's been going on for 100, 150 years, however long it is. Like my friend Chelsea, she does like financial advising, and she kind of takes a slightly different approach than most, but you're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but it's like, okay, where do these two things intersect, right? Like, where does health and your mindset intersect? And then where can we actually look to see how we move forward? Like, I mean, how many, hate to say it, but like how many like super overweight people are there in the country is like, it's not because everybody is like the biggest piece of shit in the whole world. Like, there's stuff that you got to deal with, but there's not really many paths to figure that stuff out if you just go traditional fitness or traditional psychology. It almost seems like, so you're trying to take an approach that combines the two of those?
Yeah. So, I mean, like, technically what behavior analysis is how is an organism affected by its environment? And a big thing, like you just brought it up, like it's not that, everybody is lazy in the US. If you look how the environment has changed, even from the 50s and the 60s, they didn't have a lot of this like GMO, McDonald's and Winn-Dixie, was it, what am I thinking of? I don't know,
Wendy's?
Burger King, Wendy's. Yeah. They didn't have all of these on every single corner. A lot of households actually, they either grew vegetables in their garden or they cooked home-cooked meals. I don't think microwavable meals were actually even that old. Like, I think even my parents were alive before a microwavable meal was a thing, and those are so high in sodium. So it's like things like that started changing. And now, I mean, we just tell Google to turn off the lights. We just, our Keurig is automatic and it's ready to go in the morning. We can probably use our electric chair to just scoot on over to the kitchen. We don't even have to move anymore, and things are more readily available than ever. And I think it's interesting because there's this huge push right now in health and fitness about behavior change. But a lot of people are not doing it in a way I see that is actually helping people. I see it as in they're trying to do the psychology behind it, where it's like, oh, well, how do you feel about doing this? Where you bring thoughts and feelings and you're run by your emotions, where that's just, it's not powerful. What's powerful is creating an environment that's actually going to cause change. Like, if you don't have cookies in your house, you're not going to eat cookies. The human being is pretty lazy, right? I'm not saying we're all lazy, but like, just when we want something, we're kind of lazy about it. If you don't leave cookies in your house, I really doubt you're going to drive like 10, 20 minutes to the store to go get cookies. Like it's just changing your environment. It's way more than changing your mindset, because a mindset comes with the change in environment. But if you change your mindset, you don't change your environment, there's always going to be stimuli and things that in the environment that trigger the same response, that consistently trigger the same response, and you're never going to see a change. And I think that's why it's so important to not just be, oh, well, when I was little, I used to eat frosting when I was upset. It's not just that. Well, it's like you still have frosting in your freezer, or in your fridge. Well, it doesn't matter how much you tell yourself you're not going to eat it when you're upset. If you go to the fridge and you're upset, you're going to grab that. And it's just because it's sitting right there waiting for you to come and eat it, right? It's not going to just disappear because you feel like your mindset has changed. We are creatures of habit, and that is just how it goes.
Do you ever teach people to like kind of find a support structure when doing this? And I guess I ask because I've been trying to like eat less sugar, right? I eat sugar nonstop. Like I just fucking cookies, whatever I can find, candy. I'm about it. So I've been trying to eat less of it, but what my wife has been helping me do for the past like 2 weeks is like, I was like, you know what? I'm thinking about possibly going keto, but I don't want to just go keto because I'm going to fail. Anytime I decide I want to do a diet, it's basically like 3 p.m. on a Sunday. And I'm like, that's it. I'm going keto and I'm going to Publix. I'm buying 6 avocados and one other thing. And then I'll figure it out from there. And that's like how I do it. So this time I actually, like, my wife's been like putting together these like snack packs for me, and like nuts and carrots and like meats and shit. And actually by having that I can bring into the office, I'm not going to the office thing and getting the fig bars, the all natural fig bars that are totally fine to sit on a shelf for 2 years. They're very all natural. But like, do you ever advise anybody on like kind of creating some sort of support system like that? Or is that kind of what you do as part of your service?
Yeah. So, I mean, technically that's exactly what I do, but I mean, it goes way beyond me too. I mean, the biggest thing too, and if I can, it's a struggle. Like it works. It's a struggle for me, but I love to get like other people and their families on board. If you can change as a family too, that is awesome. Cause that quote where you are the sum of the 5 people you hang around with. If their habits are bad when you head home, like, like let's say your wife was the one that's in the chocolate cookies and carrot cake and everything you can think of. If you were trying to go keto and you walk in the door and she just has cookies, she baked fresh brownies, it is going to be so hard for you to even establish a little bit of a change. Even if you're strong-willed and diligent, there's going to be a moment that you break. And a lot of people have that black and white personality where they're like, oh, I broke it. Oh, it's too bad. And I'm just going to throw everything I did out the window and we're just going to go back to our old habits. It's so easy to just revert back to our old habits. So, creating that support system, and it doesn't have to be 100 people. It doesn't have to, maybe it's not going to be your significant other. Maybe it's not going to be your best friend. Maybe they're not even on board with it. But if you can find, I think what's really impactful is a stranger, which sounds weird, but for some reason, we're okay with letting some people down around us because they're like, oh, well, they know us. They'll understand. But when you have a stranger and you don't want to let that stranger down, it's a lot more powerful. And I think that's kind of where I come into play. And sometimes it's hard to like establish, like make sure I don't get too close to my clients because we spend a lot of time, they open up to me and we talk a lot of stuff, but like I have to have that barrier where it's like, oh, I'm still your coach. You can't disappoint me. Where it's like, you want to make sure you have somebody that holds you accountable. And some people do awesome with accountability. Some people are like, well, I don't want somebody yelling at me. We're not going to yell at you. But I think the fear of disappointment in our minds is so much stronger than the fear of getting yelled at. Because a lot of us, strong-skinned, we're like, oh, you can yell at me all day. But, oh, boy, if I just see like, oh, you didn't do anything you said you would do. And it's not me being mean. It's just like, oh, God, I feel awful. Like, think about it. Your boss, like if anybody's listening, telling your boss, oh yeah, I didn't do this project at all, and they don't get mad at you. They're just like, oh, okay, you know, like disappointment. It just, ooh, something about it. So yeah, accountability through like just making sure that you're not like disappointing somebody, I think is so, so, so powerful. And sometimes it just takes that random stranger to just get you on the right path, you know? Don't eat sugar for a week. I mean, sugar is not great for you. I don't like to eliminate things from the diet, but if sugar is something you want to cut back on, I say, you know, like find somebody and you just kind of check in once in a while. It doesn't take much. It just takes a little bit of communication there.
Well, and the last episode that you just put out on your podcast, I don't remember the guy's name, but you guys were talking about like, you know, the human desire to have something that they want, but they can't have. And that intersects with willpower. And I try to like not let myself do things without willpower, you know what I mean? But I thought it was kind of interesting, and I guess I do this, but I never thought about it. But I love sugar, but one of the first things I have in the morning is like toast with peanut butter and jelly on it. It's basically like a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lack of a better term. But I guess like by eating that in the morning when you have willpower, you're still I'm still getting the sugar. I'm still getting that fix. But then when I've got these like pre-planned snacks and everything later in the day, I just eat that. And I don't feel like I need as much to go eat like a shitload of sugar.
Right.
I don't know. I just like I was actually listening to that on the way in today, and that kind of clicked for me. And now I'm just like, oh, I just got to go work out early, because when I get to that 6 p.m. window, like you guys were talking about, like, I'm really busy. I'm tired.
Well, so what's interesting, what you just said is like you wake up and you have this peanut butter and jelly toast, right? Like, is that often? That happens a lot?
Yeah, pretty much every day.
I mean, that's a habit right there. You know, like you don't use any willpower even thinking about what to eat now. So what's kind of interesting is, and kind of like what we touched, I can't remember exactly what we said, but I remember the conversation. You know, fun fact, and there's a lot of speculation out there, especially in the behavior analysis area. Steve Jobs, we all know Steve Jobs, right? He wore a black turtleneck and like washed out jeans, and I think he wore sneakers every single day. And there's like a rarity that you saw him do anything different, right? Well, a lot of people say, you know, every decision that you make takes some kind of willpower away. So you have this bank of willpower, you spend it every single day. It recreates at night, but every single day, every decision you make, you have to use willpower, unless it's a habit. And that's why habits are so powerful, because you're not using a lot of willpower in the morning to tell yourself, I need to make this peanut butter and jelly toast. You're not probably almost using any willpower because you're used to it. You're like, I expect this in the morning. If I don't get it, something's off, and you feel weird. Well, you know, like Steve Jobs, he wore the same thing every day. And they say, you know, like we can't do any studies on this anymore, but over time, like because he wasn't spending all this willpower on how he's going to dress in the morning, or, you know, what suit is he going to put on? What tie is he going to wear? He had so much more willpower to work throughout the day and be creative in other areas. And I always thought that was interesting because, I mean, even like, I don't know if I'm allowed to say his name without getting the podcast canceled, Donald Trump, he wears suits all the time, right? Where you almost see people like that never stray. They're very successful people. They don't do all this crazy stuff where they wear it. They do very habitual things every single day because their willpower can be used on huge projects and not these like little decisions that they have to make throughout the day. So that is kind of like what we were going with willpower, where you have so much, you want to do the important things in the morning because that's when you have the most willpower, but you also want to make them a habit so you can still save that willpower for the rest of the day.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I guess something that I always go back and forth with is how habitual versus how free flowing I kind of want my life to be. And I'm not great at sticking to a course and going with it. And I can do it for a limited time. But, you know, that's kind of, I guess, part of like with me, I make music. I like doing all that. So part of it too is like I got this like fucked up thing in my head where I'm like, I have to be an artist. And like part of that is kind of like the way you carry yourself, right? The way that you dress and do all that kind of stuff. And I still dress like a 7th grader. So I'm not, now that I'm saying this out loud, I'm really not sure what I'm hoping for with how I dress and what I can really accomplish. So maybe as I'm saying it, it's not as big of a deal, but it is kind of funny the way you said Steve Jobs or Trump. And then I think maybe of different like artists who dress like crazy and things like that. But those decisions actually do have a pretty big impact on how you structure your life, you know, because Trump seems very much like wear the suit, wear the same thing over and over, and he's just fucking go, 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 go. Steve Jobs was like, wear the turtleneck, you know, go, 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 go. Whereas somebody else might be like more artistic, they dress like crazy, but it doesn't inhibit them from being go, go, go. But it kind of is like an embodiment of like the way that they carry themselves.
They present themselves. And there's a lot, I mean, like, so, I mean, I can't speak for a lot of guys because you guys are pretty simple in how you dress, but like for girls, like, let's say, I mean, okay, so what I'm wearing, if we see this on video, is like literally a shirt that says run your life, which is my motto here, and like a sports bra, and I always have Lululemon pants on. That is legit what I wear almost every single day. It's just a different color shirt. And
same, that's what I wear every day as well.
Those Lululemon pants, man.
That's my Steve Jobs outfit.
And I mean, I'm not dressing to impress people. I'm dressing because this is my personality. I'm a trainer. I like this comfortable look and I want to help you, but I'm not going to sit here and worry about what I'm wearing all day long and use all this willpower to be like, oh, should I have matched my earrings to my dress? Or, oh, look at my cute shoes. I've never been one of those girls. A lot of girls do like that, but I've realized the days I have to dress up and pick things out, I'm actually more exhausted and just unwilling to want to do anything in the afternoon, which just sounds weird. Might not be super correlated, but like I've made so many decisions on how to match my shoes to my dress, and I just don't want to deal with anything else but wear this and try to get compliments because I've spent so much time on it. So there is something to be said, like no matter what you do, every choice that you make uses some kind of willpower, and you need to choose what you want to make into a ritual versus what you want to have to actually spend your willpower and your time on. And clothes, for a lot of successful people, it actually seems like they have their one outfit that identifies them. They're comfortable in it in every single situation. And that actually helps you because willpower is you can use it other places.
Well, and I guess it's like if you've got that in the back of your mind of unsuredness about what you're wearing or how you may be perceived, that's a bunch of little decisions going on throughout the day. You know, like when I wear like you wear new clothes or something like that, you're always kind of thinking like, oh, how is this going to be received? Whereas when I wear my 7th grade clothes, I know that this is how I'm going to be perceived. So it's like less of a thought. Do you feel like looking at your phone first thing in the morning helps or hurts your willpower?
I actually think it's just overall bad for you. And I say this because not only like, you know, what if you wake up to a bad text message? What if you wake up to the, you know, FOMO because you went on to Instagram and somebody's doing something that you've always wanted to do? It just puts you into such a negative mindset. I mean, like even if you have news pop up on your phone, oh, the news is not good. Like it's just going to be a negative experience. That's why I actually always try to tell people, try to put your phone in a different room, try to put it across the room. I know it's hard. I know a lot of people use it as an alarm and there's just not ways to get around that. But, even try to put it on do not disturb and just like hit the alarm, get up and walk away. Just walk away from the phone for the first 5 or 10 minutes, because what you do in the morning really determines how your day is going to go. Try to establish something different than just looking at your phone. But you know what? That's hard. And I'm going to tell you right now, like, I have weeks and weeks where I'm good with it. I don't look at my phone. And then like, let's say something drastic happens and I feel like I have to stay updated on my phone. And then I'm back to like checking it the first thing I wake up. And then I get stuck in that black hole and it's just like tunneling down. It's hard, but I really would say you just try not to look at your phone just for so many reasons, not just because of one.
Yeah. I mean, this weekend I was kind of able to unplug from it, but that was what I had to do, is like hit the alarm and just literally leave it on my nightstand and just like walk away for 2 or 3 hours. And then I can look at it and I'm not as like addicted right off the bat. But part of starting up a business and now I'm like testing out LinkedIn and getting the word out there through that and, doing all this different stuff. I mean, I just realized like on Friday afternoon of last week, I'm like, oh my God, I'm fucking glued to this thing, cause I'm just, and it's cool cause you get engagement. You're like, I'm testing it out for the first time really ever. And it is cool to be able to interact with people that quickly. But yeah, I was noticing it was like really a time suck. And it felt like it was like physically limiting my ability to think. Like it almost felt like putting like physical blinders on. It took like a whole day of almost not looking at my phone to be able to like really like open my eyes and be like, I haven't even really been like looking outside. Like I've been barely looking outside. When I am outside, I'm not really paying attention to like the Florida sunsets in September are some of the most insane things that you'll ever see. And I'm like thinking about my phone and what's on LinkedIn. It's like, fuck, I gotta pump the brakes here.
No. And I mean, okay. So the best behavior analysts that know you better than you will ever know yourself are these social media platforms. I think it's like, what is it? Social media, or there's some kind of Netflix show on it. And I can't remember the name of it, but it was real big at one time. Oh, the
Social Dilemma?
Social Dilemma, that's what it is. And I mean, they know you. They know how your brain is wired. They know what kind of rewards you need to receive to be hooked to them. They know so much about you, and it's almost scary that they can predict your every move. And that's why we get so hooked. I mean, I think the biggest tool, and I'm shocked myself that they even include it, is that your screen usage, right? Where it says, oh, you used your screen 24 hours a day this week. And you're like, 24 hours? What? Like you say, you're like, what do you mean 24 hours a day? I mean, it's incredible because you can monitor it and that you're like 7 or 8 hours on your phone, but you can't physically get off of it. Starting a business is even worse. It's notification after notification after notification. I actually turned off like Instagram notifications. I turned off almost all my notifications except text messages and one email. We have multiple email accounts, and that's just because like that email, like if something happens, I need to be in it. But most of it takes me to sit down at my computer or sit down at my phone to check everything, because I don't want things constantly pinging me throughout the day, because I need focus. I need what they call like deep work. I need to focus. I mean, I try so hard. I feel so bad. My boyfriend, like, we'll call each other out. We'll just sit there and we'll be talking to each other, like scrolling. And it's just like, no, we need to put the phone down and have a conversation. Because the only time I feel like I talk to him is if I text him throughout the day, and it's like I can go down the street to his house. And it's like, why don't I do that? Because it's more rewarding to get a ping back in return than it is to almost talk face and face now. And that's scary. That's almost creepy how they've turned it into, or what they turn it into, or us into.
Well, and yeah, it's a good point. And I'm actually like, I'm glad I'm doing this podcast, because it's kind of forcing me to like, get out of my own head and have conversations with people and really pay attention to what they're saying the whole time, as best as I can. But like I've noticed since I've started doing this, like my conversations in my personal life have been much better. Like I can pay attention to what people are saying much better, you know, even with all this different stuff going on. It's like, I feel like I can engage more, but it really is just like that skill of talking. And I always like kind of poo-pooed that, because I don't particularly like just talking to talk. It's not, I have a really tough time having like small talk conversations, but, and probably even comes down to like, there's a song in a Red Hot Chili Peppers song. It's like, people have so much to say. They talk their lives away. Don't even hesitate. And like, I've always like thought about that. Like, man, people just do fucking talk and they just run their mouth like I'm doing right now for a long period of time. And they've got like nothing really important to say. But part of it too is like, you've got to just talk and get these ideas out. And that's kind of how you figure out if your ideas are good. Like, there's a lot of shit I don't know about. And like, I'm sure at some point people are going to come and like try to correct me on it. And I'm cool with that. But, yeah, it's interesting.
No, I'm right there with you. Before I started this podcast, if I can go back to my first few podcasts, they were so painful because I didn't know how to talk, which sounds odd. You know, it's not like I was a toddler learning how to talk. And I kind of resort back to, you know, throughout our lives, we are kind of told to, you know, speak when spoken to in a way. Like if you think about it when you're in school, like you don't want to speak out of turn. You got to raise your hand. When you're at work, if you're in a meeting, you're not just going to sit there and blabber your life away. You know, you're going to talk about what's relevant. If you have nothing to say, you don't talk the whole meeting. There's so many instances where we just don't talk. And people don't realize that talking is a skill. Nobody talks on the phone anymore unless you're weird, right? You don't want anybody in public to hear your conversation or unless you're on FaceTime, but everybody texts. So we're great at texting now, but when it comes to face-to-face communication, forming words, forming sentences, and forming our own ideas, it seems like it's so not there anymore. And I realized that I was having a hard time getting my ideas out there and talking about them with my tone, my voice, everything, until I started a podcast. And I mean, that I started it a little over a year ago, like practicing it, and then launched it really seriously in February. But it took me forever. And now I have the most confidence I've ever had in my life, being able to talk to people. Like I don't even hesitate walking up to places to ask somebody for a question anymore. And I know like Ciara a year ago was like, oh, you know what? It's okay. I'll just pay extra for this because I don't want to go talk to them. Like, what if they respond to me, you know? Because it's like we're almost scared of this response. Like, oh my God, what if they talk back to me? And you're just like, well, you keep the conversation going. Or I couldn't keep simple conversations going. And I almost think about it too. People like to small talk. I don't know if it's they like to small talk or they don't know how to talk. And right now with all these social boundaries where you're going to offend somebody, talking just became harder for people. So now you want to text it so you can like rewrite what you say and reword it because you can't pull words back out of thin air, but you can sit here and like reform your text message for 10 or 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, one thing I'm noticing too in the change in communication, which maybe this is going the right direction, but people are sending more like voice memos I've noticed lately. And that could be, I feel like people are doing that more in a business sense. So people are doing, what I'm noticing is like videos like this, like they'll use like Drift Video, Vimeo now has it, Loom, all these different things, but like Vidyard and all this stuff, but and we started to do it, and it was pretty good with sales and getting an interaction, but you send like a video of yourself like, hey, I'm Chris, I'm with Flight Docs, I wanted to tell you about aircraft maintenance tracking, blah, 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 and you send a 30-second video, and you can convey an idea so much better that you can convey the intent. It's a face to the name. So maybe it's like we hit like a limitation for a little bit with the technology. And then now that the other back end of technology is catching up, maybe we'll start moving back towards this. I don't know.
Well, I think it's interesting. It's like what I feel like it's like, one step forward, two steps back. Because yes, a lot of people are doing all this voice, this record yourself for an interview or record yourself for this. But now we have the limitation of a screen in front of us, where we're not human interaction now. So yes, we're talking, but now we're not in person, and it's weird. So I don't know if you've heard of Toastmasters. Have you heard of the club Toastmasters? So Toastmasters is a huge, for anybody listening, is it's a huge thing when people want to get better at public speaking. I had to think about how to say that. A lot of Toastmasters clubs are designed to be better at public speaking. A lot of them went online over the pandemic, so everybody was meeting on Zoom. I'm in one of them. We just recently went back to in-person meetings. And I'm going to tell you, everybody was really, really confident online. Everybody was really confident talking behind their computer screen in their living room. When we started standing up in front of people and being able to actually see their reactions and see if they're fidgeting with something and see if they're looking to the side or to somewhere else, because you can turn your camera off on Zoom and still talk. But now it's like trying to talk to somebody and react to their reactions. That almost seems like it's gone. And just seeing that in Toastmasters, it's like, oh man, everybody's going to have this weird transition back into life where we now have to talk and react to somebody's reactions. And I mean, conferences, we were lucky. Podcast movement was in person. But for some people, they did it online, and it's just, you can speak. I can speak all day to a camera. I can speak all day to you. But it's so weird. Only online. I'm bored. I'm in my boring room. We need to get out and have human interaction.
I know we've got to get back to it. It's so critical. I was so thankful to go to a conference. It was so nice to be back at a conference because, I was working for, I was in the aviation industry, and then they had a NBAA conference, which would usually be either Orlando or Vegas. And, I just miss being at the conference. Like those are some of the best times. And it was actually nice to go as a visitor this time instead of an exhibitor. So I really got to have like a totally different conference experience. But yeah, that in-person aspect is huge because
it really is.
Especially when you go to something like that, you really can you can kind of how do I say this? Like you have to get out of that comfort zone, and you are getting that real-time feedback. I think part of the pandemic of, all right, now that you're saying it, of being behind the camera, being behind all this stuff, is that you can kind of reject whatever feedback you're getting, or you can choose to ignore it, right? Or somebody doesn't have their camera on. But when you show up to a meeting in person or something like that, if you're slouched, you're just you're like a fucking lump on a log. Everybody that would be there is going to be like,
oh,
dude, what's your problem? Sit up.
And I mean, I've seen it with a few people I know, if they're on meetings with the vice president of their company, but they have their camera shut off, there is a sense of security with that. So there's this famous Stratford study in psychology where I think it's called the Stratford study. Oh my gosh. Okay. Don't quote me on that one. It probably is though, where they literally had, people play prisoner. And if you had shades on, for the police, those aviator shades, there's something about that shading your identity, this disconnection you have in your personality where you're able to do things you wouldn't normally do because your identity is a little bit different. It's shaded, it's changed, and you're hiding behind it. I actually started saying the same thing with masks. There's a lot of people that seem to be a little bit more confident when they're wearing masks now, especially in public. And it's because it's shading half your face. You feel like you can do things that you wouldn't normally do because of this new change in identity. And I think turning off your camera when you're in a meeting with the vice president of your company, which I don't think I'd recommend. I'd want to stand out, but at the same time, there's this sense of security, whereas if you're in the same room as him and you're nervous and you're shy, you're not going to act the same way. You might not even speak up. So it's really weird how people are reacting to this. It's again, like how is this environment changing us, and why are we reacting in such different ways than we used to react to?
Yeah. It's going to be weird for some of the younger people coming into the workforce now too. So like part of, but I think that's not really going to change that much. I do think that maybe in the long term, maybe it's unfortunate, maybe it's better. I just have no real idea, but like maybe that's how it's going to be. So we kind of have to navigate from there. And in my eyes, hopefully it goes back to like in-person stuff. I really much more enjoy in-person stuff and travel and meetings and all that stuff, but we'll see how crazy the world goes. But, I think what we kind of need to do is change the way that we interact with the newer people that are coming into the workforce. So like part of that, my friend Marissa and I were going to do like a podcast episode, and she's been doing inbound marketing for, I don't know, 8 years or something like that. So we're literally going to do a screen share and come up with an inbound marketing plan for my business. And we're going to do that like as a real time thing, almost in a way that hopefully anybody that's watching it that might be in the same spot can actually see real people working and doing. Because when you're not able to be in that same environment as those people that came before you, who were able to show you, okay, here's what it looks like when you work. Here's what it looks like to collaborate, to meet. Everybody has to be in it. You've got to be plugged in order to have a good thing going. We've got to still be able to teach like the next generation of people that kind of thing. So, right. I don't know. I think people will figure out a way forward and figure out how to solve some of this stuff. It's just, that in-person piece, it really, it's almost like a magic element,
It really is. And so I always have to, I have to laugh. My class, so like the people, I was part of the graduating class of COVID, right, of college. So technically, I would have finished my 4 years of college in 2020. I was graduating with 2 masters. So I was just a little bit ahead of like technically of where I should have been with a bachelor's. But I finished 2 masters in 2020. Like that was my graduating year. And everybody that's my age, that was their graduating bachelor year, where that's where we all enter the workforce. So, and I've even said it before, I graduated in the weirdest time where I was expected to go out and get a job, and all of us were like, what do you mean we have to go get a job? We just graduated. We just entered into the COVID world. What is COVID? Like, what do you do? And I think it's just weird because like as being that class that's kind of had to, all right, well, we're not in school. We're trying to work. What does that look like? Well, it's not me going to the office. It's me sitting at home. How do I stay diligent? How do I learn to move up? Like usually you're shadowing people. Usually you're rubbing elbows with people to even, find people to network with. And it's just completely changed. I have friends. One friend, he was saying, he misses going into work because he doesn't know how to meet people. And I'm not talking about just like meeting friends, but like, if you want to get married someday, you're going to have to go out and find somebody at some point. And now everybody's locked in their homes. It's like, what are you going to do? Go door to door and ask like, hey, like, are you single? Are you my age? Like, how is this going to work? But we're all still on that Tinder, Bumble, and that's turned into a crazy mess. And it's just such a new, weird environment because people aren't in their workplaces. People aren't doing what they used to do. We're just kind of barricading ourselves in. And as that class, I can say it's been odd. It's been weird. Like when you asked me when I was little, what do you want to do when you graduate? I would have not said I'm graduating into COVID, and I would have not said half of what I ended up doing.
Yeah. So when you talk to people, okay, so it sounds like the consensus kind of for younger people going into the workforce is like, this is weird.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. we think, when we were all looking for it, and a lot of my friends, when we were at our last semester, they all had to transition weirdly onto the computer, and everybody was just like, well, this is odd. And in a sense, I mean, maybe I probably people behind me now, graduating last year, graduating this year, they kind of understand it better. But at the time, I think there's still a lot of hope for people my age that were like, we're going to go back into the office. And I mean, there's a lot of places coming out saying, hey, you guys can stay virtual. And everyone's like, what do I do? But there's some people that are celebrating that they're staying virtual because they like to travel. But then there's other people who are like, I don't want to travel. I just want to stay here. They want that more of that pristine lifestyle. And it's just like, it's been like a whole crazy mess. And hearing it from all different angles is just insane.
Yeah. Well, and even seeing people posting on LinkedIn, like I had an employer ask me to come back into work. So I put my notice in and found something else. And like, I mean, I'm torn because I hear both sides, right? Like I hear it from the employer side or the side of people that want to go back in. And there are dynamics that are just way better for being in person. But I am also very much like free-spirited person. I do like to travel. Like I don't necessarily like having like a boss or places I have to be or things like that. And I do understand that if you can get your work done and you can be effective, like, and you have an opportunity to do it remotely and that's what you prefer, like, dude, find that. Like, you have the ability to do that now. You also have to look at the flip side but if you're there, you have to look from the employer side of if they're like, okay, well, basically in their mind, because you're not there, you're not going to come in. And maybe if you're really good, they won't view you this way, but there's a very good chance that they're going to start to look at you as just consultant or something like that. And when opportunities open up, it depends on the company, but you may not have as good of a chance to move up in that company if that's something that you want to do, or to take a new opportunity, because they might not view you as, as bought in. But one thing that you said that was interesting with the sunglasses is that you put something, in between you and kind of mask your identity. I feel like that's how things are with like cops and unmarked cars. And this is just something that I've thought about, but I think when with all of this stuff going on last year with like George Floyd and all these different, like protests and, all this stuff going on, I think the piece where the average person can kind of relate to some of that stuff and maybe like still be upset with police officers, even though most average people like support having police officers, are these fucking unmarked cars. Like when you have like, all right, you have a Ford Taurus that's unmarked, fair deal, dude. That is a cop car with no lights on. That's all right. Fair game. Fucking asshole, but all right, fair game. I get it. But like I saw one time this car pulled over and there's 4 cars behind it. One was an unmarked minivan. One was an unmarked RAV4. Another one was an unmarked something. It was just like these different things that get put in between you and like, I guess maybe like a piece of authority. I guess maybe that was what the study was about. But yeah, it does create like a us and them, and it's kind of like a dehumanizing thing. I mean, when you have online interactions where you have this mask up, you just have your picture or whatever it is, and somebody tells you, fuck you, you don't know anything about this thing. Like we are kind of like dehumanizing each other. But the person behind that screen, that cop, like they're still just people. But it does adds a real strange dynamic that I just don't think we really understand yet.
Yeah. No, and I mean, like, even like talking about, I think what the most interesting thing is, and not I won't get political, but like all the protests last year, if you watch a lot of those videos, a lot of them are masked. I mean, not just because of the pandemic, guys. They're masked, they dress differently, they wear different things because they can disassociate who they are to go do something with a mob mentality. I mean, when you were watching videos of people breaking into buildings or burning buildings down or, whatever crazy thing it is, a lot of the crazy ones, they were wearing odd costumes. We just saw one a couple weeks ago or 4 days ago, I think some lady with a clown costume and face paint's just as powerful, was throwing an egg at the guy that's challenging Newsom in California. And I mean, it's just like you're able, I mean, I don't understand. It's just like such a reality now, but you're just so able to disassociate yourself and do things you didn't think you'd ever do when you're able to kind of set up this screen, set up this mask, set up, the shades, and just act so differently. And it's such a weird thing that our brain does, because it's like, oh, I don't recognize myself as this, so now I can do X, and I never thought I could. It's just, I mean, we see it on horror movies. People that are villains, they put masks on. You take the mask off. Who is behind the mask? It's a legit thing. It's not just in Disney movies. It's not just in villain movies. When you take the mask off, that's who you are, and you most likely won't act like that if you didn't have the mask on. And I'm not talking about COVID masks. I'm talking about just, saving face. What kind of mask are you wearing today? Who are you?
Yeah. Well, and you can even do that. You can do that with your existing face too. I mean,
yeah, you can. You really, really can. Identity is such a weird thing to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. Well, and two, kind of putting yourself out more in like a public forum like this, you really do have to kind of reevaluate what your mask is that you put on. Yeah. And I don't know, for me, it's kind of helped me figure out what that mask is and like slowly start chipping away at it. It's there's still something there, still plenty there actually, maybe more there than not there, but it's interesting how you can start chipping away at some of that stuff.
Really is.
But so getting back to what we originally talked about, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but like, what the hell is wrong with you that you just went and ran a mountain? Or should I say like, congratulations for running a mountain? Or
thank you. So,
or maybe both. Congrats. What the hell is wrong with you?
I'm going to turn this into something really crazy. So back August 22nd, I ran up Pikes Peak. For anybody that knows what Pikes Peak is, it's a 14,100-foot mountain, which is a very high mountain. And I ran up that from 6,000 feet, it's like a little over 6,000 feet elevation down, starting in Colorado Springs. So I did that. And 2 weeks later, 2 days ago, as of this recording, so September 12th, I ran another marathon up in Pennsylvania. So I did a half marathon up a mountain. 2 weeks later, I ran a full marathon in Pennsylvania. And what is wrong with me? I'm actually kind of wondering myself. As I've been trying to get downstairs the past 2 days, barely able to move my legs. I'm actually more sore from the marathon than I was Pikes Peak. Wasn't even sore Pikes Peak, but I think that's because my lungs hurt so bad. Because I came from Florida, all right? That's 13 feet elevation to 14,000. That's a big difference. But I don't know what's wrong with me, except I love running. And I think it's just there's something so calming, there's something so gentle about running that I think everybody should try it out at least once in their life. Maybe twice. Once you're going to hate it, twice maybe you'll get the hang of it.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I mean, when you're running and doing like a marathon, is there any points where you're going and you're just like, dude, fuck this. I'm like done. And I mean, you finish both of them, so you definitely push past that. But I mean, are there any times that are like that?
Yeah, no. So I'll give two. So Pikes Peak, two different instances, and we've all been through it. I think I was at mile 6 or 7. I mean, I still have got, halfway to go up this mountain, and they said they were going to start turning people around if you're not dressed correctly, because it was 5 degrees at the top of the mountain in August. And there's half of me thinking, God, you know what? This wouldn't be too bad if I got turned around. To be completely honest with you, I might invite it, because I was in so much pain just trying to breathe to get up this mountain. And I was like, I still have half to go. This is horrible. So I almost want to invite wanted to invite that. It didn't happen. It warmed up to like 47 degrees by the time I got to the top. Oh, darn. I did make it to the top, but there's so many times where you're like, you know what? Never mind. I shouldn't have done this. I'll just have to fix a story up of why I quit. 2 days ago, it was one of the most defeated marathons I've ever felt in my life. I trained really, really hard for it. I wanted to go out and get a Boston qualifying marathon because I was kind of screwed out of Boston the past 2 years. And so I have to requalify, and it kind of sucks. But this race was not what I thought it would be. It was on gravel, dirt, rock bed, riverbed, and it was muddy, and it was slightly uphill for about 12 miles. And it was just nothing that I was ready for. I could barely get footing. People were rolling their ankles, pulling things. It was bad left and right. And my quads were on fire because I didn't train for gradual uphill. I climbed a mountain, but that's still different muscles. But my lungs were ready and my mind was ready, but my body was not. So I came in a really bad time. I mean, these are worse times than I thought I would have done during training. And there was points, and I think I was at like mile 19 or 20, where I was like, I might as just well walk off. Like, I'm not going to make it under my qualifying time. I don't know why I'm doing this. There was no water on the course. My boyfriend was like hopping each spot in that he could meet me along this course just to hand me water or cranberry juice. I don't drink Gatorade. I do cranberry juice. And I was just so ready to walk off, and everybody I talked to was just so ready to quit. But at the same time, a lot of us were like, you know what? It doesn't really matter about the time. Let's just do this, because time might be defeating in running if you don't get the time you want, but what's more defeating is a DNF, or did not finish. And you don't want that on your record. So, half of me is like, well, if I have to walk this, if I have to just, push through the pain, if I'm crying, I don't care. I'm going to get this finished with, and that's, a lot of us that crossed the finish line around the same time, we all said the same thing. We all wanted to finish at least 30 minutes earlier than we did. That's kind of the type of group I was around, and it was defeating, but you know what? We all look back on it, we laugh, because we all think, oh, well, that was a cruddy race, and we're all in it together.
Fair enough. I feel like I would have had that thought, like, I won't say quarter mile in, but half mile in, been like, man, is it worth it? Is it worth it? Will I finish this race? Maybe you have more fortitude than I do, because I don't know. I don't necessarily want to know what my answer is right now at this very moment.
I think the worst thing you can ask yourself during a race is is it worth it? Because the answer is no. The answer is probably no in the logical sense. No, it's not worth it. Like, I can barely walk today. I can barely walk yesterday. I'm in a lot of pain. Like, my whole body feels like I got hit by a bus. Is it worth it? It probably wasn't, because is this pain worth it? Not really. But the sense of accomplishment is worth it. I guess it just matters how you ask yourself the question. But if somebody else asks you, it's most likely no. So don't let them ask you that. Well,
it's letting those other people's opinions in. It's kind of how it goes with almost anything. I mean, is it worth it to do all this shit?
No,
I don't know.
But I want to.
Yeah. I think one thing that kind of got me away that helped me get through some of that stuff was I heard a podcast where they were talking about somebody's like, oh, I should. And somebody's like, you shouldn't do anything. Like, there is literally nothing that you should do. If you have anything that you say like, oh, I should be doing this, like, stop and reevaluate. Like, what should you do in the grand scheme of things? Like, in your life, like, is there anything that you really have to do? Like, you should. And once I realized like the answer is no to that, it was actually pretty freeing in terms of what you can accomplish, and flipping it to like wanting to do something or wanting to finish. Because I think with the way I ask myself a lot of these things before I start, it's very much like, I'm done. I don't want to do this. But when you're in it, something about it, you have a little bit more leverage, I think, to finish. Getting started is the hardest part of all this shit.
It really is. Yeah, and I mean, you brought up a good point, and I always say this, actually, and maybe this is why I have more acquaintances than I have super close friends. I always say, you do not have to do anything. Like, when people are like, well, you have to do this. No, you don't. There is, like even rules, and I shouldn't say this, but you do not have to follow the rules. Rules are not like legit pillars that are going to hurt you in the way. Morally, we shouldn't, we shouldn't shoot somebody else. We shouldn't like hurt somebody else. No. But nothing in this world is saying you can't or you have to do something a certain way. And I think it's just funny because that mentality is so binding. And it's like people like us, like when we start our own podcast and go off on our own and do our own thing, people are like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Or, you can't do that. It's like that is your pillar that you've set up. It's not mine. I don't have to follow any path. I can do what I want when I want, which people have made such a selfish idea to not do. You shouldn't be able to do what you want when you want to do it. But I think it's like a missing key of why people can be so unhappy sometimes because they're not doing what they want, but they feel like they have to do something for somebody else. You don't have to do anything for anybody. You have to live. What you should do, what you ought to do is be what you ought to be and do what you ought to do, not what you have to do or what you feel like you should be doing. Yeah. Play of words.
Yeah. Very well said. Yeah. It's just trying to be as authentic as possible.
Yeah.
It's really all we can do. But all right. What time is it? It's almost 2:00. Shit. How long have we been going for? A little over an hour. All right, cool. Well, hey, if you want, let's wrap this thing up. But if you could, please share with people where they can find you, your podcast, your website, some of the different things that you do, and then how they can connect with you on like social media and maybe even hire you for your services.
So absolutely. So social media, the only thing that's different that you can find me on Instagram, it's my main outlet. It's at the Runpreneur. It's pretty much like, entrepreneur, but runpreneur because I'm not crazy. Everything else you can find me at Run Thrive Survive, runthrivesurvive.com, Run Thrive Survive on TikTok, on Facebook, runthrivesurvive@gmail.com. If you want to email me, everything's on my website. If it's not email me, I should be on there. I've worked really hard on that, but email me. I'd love to talk. I'd love to set up even a time to talk and see, how I can help you, what I can do for you, and, what we could accomplish together because everybody kind of needs that accountability buddy. And that's what I like to provide. So runthrivesurvive.com, anywhere that you can find me, and then at the Runpreneur on Instagram. And I'm pretty fun on Instagram, so come follow me.
Agreed. Cool. All right, Ciara, thank you very much for doing this. I really appreciate it. And thanks everybody for listening.
Thank you for having me on.
No problem. See ya.